welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. So it has become quite clear that you guys really like when I talk about Voltron, so I figured I would talk about what my favorite part of the Voltron fandom was, or just Voltron in general, and that has to be Clance. I was a big Clance shipper at the time, like disclaimer there, but I want to do kind of like an analysis on Clance today, like talk about the history of them, why people shipped them, and what made them like the most popular ship in the fandom, as well as just kind of like talk about the evolution of their relationship and how it progressed and then kind of went downhill. I do want to come at this from a unbiased standpoint, just talk about Clance itself, not my opinions on Clance, but that might kind of seep in a little bit. But I just want to talk about what it was like being a fan of Clance and being a part of the Voltron fandom at the time, because I think that could also be pretty useful for this video. So anyways, let's get into it. Now, for those of you that don't know, Clance is the pairing of Keith and Lance from the 2016 remake of Voltron Legendary Defender. Very quickly after the release of the first season, it became very clear that Clance was going to be the dominant ship in the show, and many people started to ship the two of them. And the two of them had a very interesting relationship throughout the entire show with many ups and downs, but nevertheless, Clance shippers held strong and believed that they would be canon by the end of the show. One of the biggest appeals when it came to Clance was the dynamic between the two characters. It definitely was a rivals to enemies to possibly lovers by the end of the show, which is a very popular trope when it comes to fandom. This does kind of derive from the idea of enemies to lovers, which is very prevalent in media, with examples such as Han Solo and Princess Leia from Star Wars, or Emma Swan and Captain Hook from Once Upon a Time. It has become quite clear throughout the past few years that people really like the enemies to lovers trope, and while Keith and Lance didn't necessarily start off as enemies per se, it did very well fit in with the trope and led to a lot of people liking the ship because of that. Clance was also a very big force within the fandom, so there is a very good chance if anyone was getting into the show a little later that they would have heard of Clance before they started watching it. I do want to point out that there is quite a difference between the levels of how people shipped Clance. So you have like the casual shippers that liked it, thought it like could have worked, but probably also shipped other ships. They were probably multi-shippers, and they also believed that most likely it wasn't going to become canon. They just kind of liked the idea and enjoyed just shipping it for fun. Then you also get the people that really liked Clance, thought it was the best ship, didn't really ship anything else, or anything else that at least involved Keith and Lance, and definitely thought that in the end they would become canon. That was the original plan from the showrunners, and that was how the show was going to end. They even coined the phrase "kick" or "Clance is canon king," which was everywhere. Believe me, you could not see a Clance post without "kick" on it. For this video, I really don't want to go into all of the points about the characters' supposed sexualities. Many people have found tons of evidence that would point to the idea that Lance is bisexual and that Keith is gay. If you do want to see all of the evidence compiled together, Fictional Crystals has put together 2 different videos. They were done quite a while ago, but they are really good, and they do really put together a lot of evidence that would support the idea that Lance is bisexual and that Keith is gay. So check those out if you want to see that evidence. Season 1 was quite the starting point for the two characters. It really kicked off their rivals to lovers dynamic and really highlighted the opposite personalities of the two characters. They constantly bicker and argue with one another, as well as compete against one another in different training exercises and throughout the different battles that they're in. However, one of the biggest scenes that really added to the Clance fire was the bonding moment. After being greatly injured and forced into a battle, after the fact, Keith kneels and holds Lance's hand, asking if he's okay, and Lance responds with,
"We did it. We are a good team."
And the two of them smile fondly at one another. In the next episode, when Lance is asked about what he remembers from the incident, he says he really doesn't remember much, although from what he has been told, it seems like the mice did a lot more than Keith did. Keith is very angry by this and is like,
"We had a bonding moment. I cradled you in my arms!
And Lance is like,
Nope, don't remember. Didn't happen.
However, later on in the episode, Lance does bring up the bonding moment again. To many people, Keith's clear distress over Lance forgetting their bonding moment was a sign that he really cared about Lance and that moment was super important to him, and that in that moment just completely gets forgotten by Lance. Keith makes it seem as though that their friendship might have like evolved past like the rivals, but it was completely shot down by Lance like continuing to act the same after like the bonding moment. Throughout the rest of the season, the two of them are often seen standing next to each other and smiling at one another. They often get paired up for missions or just end up paired next to each other throughout different battles. With the sheer number of screen time that the two of them got in the first season, they gained a lot of popularity within the fandom. Fan fictions took over Archive of Our Own, leading to one of the most popular fan fictions of the fandom being written, Dirty Laundry. I don't really want to go into too much detail about this because I want to do a video on popular fanfictions in the future, but to sum it up, Dirty Laundry is a classic fake dating fic where Keith is asked by Lance to be his fake boyfriend around his family for the holidays. It was pretty well received in the beginning, but eventually the author did delete it due to the sheer amount of backlash they were receiving. And in the end, though, it is a fic that's basically just become a staple for Clance shippers. The bickering between the two continues throughout season 2. While the rivalry still seems fresh in Lance's mind, it only really seems to lead to confusion on Keith's end. Season 2 also brings us the infamous elevator scene where the two of them have to work together to escape a broken down elevator. This does lead to them working better as a duo later on in the episode in a battle, constantly like communicating with each other and having the other one's back. Episode 6 of season 2 sees Keith and Allura leaving the team because they think that Zarkon is tracking them and they feel as though they are putting the rest of the team in danger. Lance is very angry about this, asking multiple times if the two of them are together once they figure out that they've left. And the whole thing is very reminiscent to a similar scene where Lance gets angry that Keith is hanging out with Naima, another girl that he seems to be interested in. This type of reaction from Lance can be attributed to him just not wanting to be one-upped by Keith and wanting to get the attention of the ladies all to himself. However, with Keith being like the constant in both of these scenarios, a lot of people wanted to or felt as though this could be applied to Keith as well. Including some of the comics, this marks the 4th time where Lance's jealousy could easily be applied to Keith as well as different ladies. Other moments in this season include Lance being visibly distressed at the thought that Keith might be in danger when the Red Lion leaves to go and help him, as well as Lance being the only one of the team members to not change the way he acts around Keith once they find out that Keith is half Galra. Many people also like to point out that while describing his teammates in episode 10, Lance has more of an excited smile on his face while he's describing everyone else, but when he describes Keith, he has more of a like fond smile on his face. Now we have to get into a little bit of the darker side of Clance and shipping Clance. After the first couple seasons, the fandom had grown quite large, leading the Clance fandom to grow in size as well. With this comes the inevitability that there are going to be more and more toxic fans within the fandom. And this became super prevalent during the whole blackmailing situation. As far as I can tell, this took place between seasons 2 and 3, but I might be wrong on that. However, this is still important to talk about when it comes to Clance and Clance shippers, so we're just going to put it here just in case it's a different time period. It has been quite a few years since this happened, so I will put a link to the website I used to get all of my information from to talk about this. It is just one website, so it could be wrong, and I'm very sorry if anything that I say isn't accurate, but it did provide a lot of pictures, and everything seems to line up with what I remember, so here we go. One Tumblr user was given the opportunity to take a tour of Studio Mir, which was the studio that animated episodes of Voltron as well as other shows such as The Legend of Korra. This person was not told that they couldn't take pictures during the tour, and they even asked at one point to take a picture of a certain figurine and was told yes. So after the tour, they went and posted all of these pictures onto Tumblr. Many fans saw these pictures and zoomed in on some of them, finding characters and other things that had not yet been released. Different like designs and sketches and stuff like that. These pictures continued to be reposted and reblogged everywhere, and that is when it finally caught the attention of Studio Mir, who was unaware of this and tried to take everything down as quickly as possible. The user that originally had posted the pictures was very quick to delete them from their page and got their followers to help to take down as many of the reposts that they could find. This information quickly spread everywhere else in the fandom, and there was just a huge general effort to get these leaked pictures down. Having these leaks out was a serious deal for Mirror because they would get in a lot of trouble from DreamWorks if these continued to spread, and so they were determined to make sure all of the leaks were taken down. However, it didn't quite work. One Twitter user by the name of Clans14 tweeted at Mirror saying, "Hi, make Clans canon and then I'll take them down from my Tumblr." Many people at the time were trying to figure out if Clans14 was a troll or just another Clans shipper, but soon after, it really didn't matter. This news had reached mainstream media and many articles were being written on the topic with headlines such as "Voltron fans blackmail studio with leaked photos, demands gay romance." This news also spread quickly amongst fans, and a very negative image of Clans shippers was soon being painted. Many Clans shippers attempted to combat this narrative by saying this isn't something that real Clans shippers would do. Posts were made saying, "Reblog if you aren't a crazy Clans shipper," and other similar phrasing. They attempted to put the blame on other shippers, saying that it was just an elaborate conspiracy to demonize Clans shippers. However, this was not very well received by other fans. In defense of the other fans, this wasn't the first time Clans shippers had kind of gone crazy. There had been instances of Clans accounts harassing the voice actors that worked on the show, such as Jeremy Shada, Josh Keaton, and Neil Kaplan, demanding them to tell the studios and the showrunners to make Clans canon, something that they obviously do not have the ability to do. After a long time, this did die down, but it did really paint a negative image of Clans shippers in people's minds, and one that Clans shippers didn't really do the best job to fix. They were constantly like ship wars between fans, but that is something I'm going to get into later on in the video. Season 3 arguably had some of the best Clans scenes in the entire show. After Shiro's disappearance, the team had to decide who is going to take his place as leader of Voltron and to fly the Black Lion, and the Black Lion chose Keith. At first, Lance was super opposed to the idea, thinking that he wouldn't want Keith to be leading the team. However, once the Black Lion did make its decision, Lance was super supportive of it, also, reassuring Keith that, "No, dude, this is your place. This is where the Black Lion chose you. You're gonna be fine. You can lead the team." This is a really big turning point for Lance because this is what allowed him to take the place as the pilot of the Red Lion and really being Keith's right-hand man and really cementing them as a pair, as a duo within the team. This season also had the infamous bedroom scene where Lance talks to Keith about his insecurity about being on the team after Shiro comes back, and Lance confesses that he feels as though it would be best if he stepped back from the team now that Shiro is back, and it wouldn't be right to take away Blue from Allure, so the best thing that he could do is just to step back and not be a member of the team anymore.
Maybe the best thing I can do for the team is step aside.
What are you talking about?
And Keith very quickly shuts that down. He doesn't necessarily reassure Lance, but what he says is clearly enough for Lance to be like, "All right, this is fine." This is the infamous leave the math to Pidge scene.
And Lance, leave the math to Pidge.
And this really shows a change in their dynamic. Now we enter a period with a serious lack of Clans content. In the first episode of season 4, Keith leaves the team to join the Blade of Marmora, meaning that there really isn't a ton of scenes where the two of them interact. So, however, in season 7, the team is thrown into a weird dimension where they are forced to compete in a strange game show. Towards the end, they are given the opportunity to vote for one team member who would get to leave. Lance votes for Keith, saying,
I voted for Keith. He's our leader, plus he's half Galra, so I think he's like the future.
Keith also votes for Lance, but his reasoning behind it is...
Lance? Why Lance?
I just don't want to be stuck here for eternity with Lance.
The season also showed kind of a return to the way the two of them behaved around each other in season 1. They're more hostile with one another and quicker to anger around each other, which is confusing for fans because it really felt like there was quite a change in their dynamic after season 3, and this just feels like several steps backwards. While season 8 did see Lance and Elora get together as a couple, many Clance shippers were very quick to point out the fact that the two of them did share a lot of scenes together, and they more resembled how they were towards the end of season 3 compared to the previous season. In the first episode, Lance seeks out Keith for advice, and Keith is able to remind Lance of all of his strengths and all of the good qualities about Lance, which is something that we hadn't really seen from the two of them.
And we're gonna do it with the Lance that's the paladin of the Red Lion. The Lance that's always got my back. And the Lance who knows exactly who he is and what he's got to offer.
In the same episode, or the next episode, I'm not quite sure, Lance's sister Veronica mentions that she kind of wants to ask out Lance's long-haired friend, which would be Keith, and Lance is super against this, completely shutting the idea down and even ranting about it like off screen for like a minute straight afterwards. And later on in the season, the two of them get to kind of talk and reminisce about their friendship together. Now I want to get into why so many people had an issue with Clance. A lot of this is going to come from my experience within the Voltron fandom, so take that as you will. The Voltron fandom was one of the most toxic fandoms I have ever been a part of, and that is saying something. The more time I spent in the fandom, the more I was able to weed out more of the toxic posts and people that I was following, but in the beginning I just found myself following a lot of toxic people and just found a lot of toxic things on my timeline, which really painted a negative image of the Voltron fandom in my mind. One thing that seemed to plague so many posts that I saw was the constant ship wars. Now, with Clance being such a dominant ship within the fandom, there are obviously a ton of people shipping Clance that were arguing against people that shipped literally anything else. It was everywhere. You could not ship anything that involved Keith and Lance that was not Clance without being hounded by certain Clance shippers. People that shipped Sheath, which was Shiro and Keith, and Allurance, which was Elora and Lance, got the brunt of the hate because other than Clance, these were two of the most popular ships in the fandom. You couldn't find a post about another ship that didn't have people in the comments arguing that something else would have been better. Typically Clance. Unfortunately, the majority of this did come from Clance shippers, adding fuel to the fire that was the idea that all Clance shippers were toxic. It was hard to see and almost made me want to leave the fandom at a certain point. That was a shame because there were a ton of creators that I followed that were not toxic and that I really enjoyed their content, but it was just getting to be too overwhelming and too much, and I was just not really enjoying my time as a part of the Voltron fandom. Eventually I was able to kind of weed through everything and get to a point where I really enjoyed the Voltron content I was seeing, but it was difficult. It was so hard to find people that weren't even like a tiny bit toxic, and it was just irritating to see. However, some Clance shippers, as well as other shippers, were giving the fandom a really bad name and just hurting the fandom in general. So, as we already talked about, many people noticed a very clear difference between how Keith and Lance interacted in season 3 and how they interacted in season 7. This could easily be attributed to the amount of time that they spent apart from one another, but with how long this difference lasted, it kind of seemed to be something else to a lot of people. With how loud and active Clance shippers were in the fandom, and with how often the idea of it was brought up to the showrunners during conventions and Q&As, it wasn't hard to imagine that showrunners Joaquin DeSantos and Lauren Montgomery were probably pretty tired of hearing about it. Some fans theorized that due to the frustration with Clance shippers, Lauren and Joaquin changed their plan to make sure that Clance didn't happen. Now, that does seem pretty outlandish, but with how drastically different the two were acting around one another, for some people, that wasn't that hard to believe. From what I remember, There were also some people that worked on the show that came out after the show that said in the beginning Clance was the original plan, and that is why there were so many scenes of them together in the beginning and why they interacted with one another the way that they did. Now, this may not be true, just throwing that out there, but this is what I remember at least. For some fans, this kind of confirmation was enough. All the shipping and theorizing that they had been doing wasn't completely out of the blue and was grounded in some sort of reality. They weren't crazy for thinking their ship was plausible, and it was enough to just kind of let it go once the show ended. In the end, Clance will hold the legacy of being one of the most popular ships, even holding the title of most popular ship on Tumblr for several years in a row. It's hard to imagine Voltron fandom without it, even if some of the shippers were pretty toxic. Alright, that is it, guys. I definitely was a very big Clance shipper at the time. I definitely did ship other things, but Clance was definitely my main ship from Voltron. I loved seeing all of the amazing work that came out of shipping Clance, all of the fan art, fan fiction, just content in general that came out, and I think that is one of the positive things that came out of Clance. So yeah, not all of it was bad. Trust me, not all of it was bad. But I think that is going to be it for today. If you guys enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content like this. And leave a comment letting me know what you guys think about Clance and if you did think it was going to be canon by the end of the show. Anyways, I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!